Hey,
Hi.
how you doing?
Okay. How about you?
What do I get tickets for? Oh, Mohegan Sun,
Ah, nice.
Friday, April 28th, Marshall Tucker Band. Oh, I love them. Back from Israel on the 28th. Wow.
Yeah.
Free tickets to Marshall Tucker. Wow. Hey, I'm in the loop.
You are in the loop. Hi,
Wow,
Arlene.
look at this.
Hi.
Hey. Hey, Arlene.
Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Sharon.
When are you going to get the cart out on the, when's the cart going to be able to go out? You know, Carrie said next week, maybe.
I've called the place where I keep it, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them when they can deliver it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, but Carrie has to allow it out on the porch. It's been a little wet lately.
Right.
Well, the league starts May 8th, so I just met a woman today, and she said she's in the league. She's a retired art teacher from Bacon Academy before Jody took over.
Do you know what her name is?
She lives in Hebron. I didn't get her name. No. She said she plays during the league time, so I gotta get her name next time. I just saw her on the way out today because I had a lot to do. I had to go to some doctor's appointments.
Ah.
It's nice. My doctor said to me, Superman, you write a book about how you overcame all these things, my blood work today. I'll be the first one to buy it, she said. That's encouraging. Well, I think in life, you have to know what your body needs. If you don't know what you need, you can't help yourself. You want to create energy, you have to know what stuff is missing from your body. You agree with that, Arlene? If you don't eat well and eat crap, and you don't know what supplements you need for your body, you're not getting it all from food. You have to figure out what your bioelectrical energy is, and you figure out what you need. That's the whole secret I had. Once I knew what I needed, I started taking it. If you don't know what you need, you're not going to get anywhere, I think. You need energy for golf. I'll tell you, walking 12,000 steps was a lot. It really is. It's a lot when you're not used to it, Arlene, right? You're not used to walking 12,000 steps. So. I mean, I prefer a cart, but you know what? You have to go with what you have. I know some people, they never will take a cart unless they absolutely have to. I think, Arlene, in a place like Quarry Ridge, I think they require a cart.
I think you're right, Rabbi.
Someone told me that you can't go to these big golf courses and expect not to have a cart with you. It's just not allowed.
Where's Quarry Ridge?
Portland.
Oh.
I think it's around there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's there. Okay, so we have a big week coming up. Friday is the Model Seder. Yay, can't believe it already. Coming up. So excited about getting stuff at the Crown this week on Thursday for that. And getting ready for Passover. I studied about 3 hours on it today. Passover, it's an amazing thing. I'm going to share it to Seder with. This one teaching I learned from my rabbi last night blew me away. It's just Passover has so many cool things to it. If you look at the, it's not just Manish Kana Halayla Hazeh. It's not just stealing the Afikomen. You know, there's a lot to the holiday. Okay, so any chapter on 153 of Psalms that was actually dear to King David, he opened with the verse containing the praiseworthy and concluded with the verse containing the word praiseworthy. Okay, so he's using that Ashrei Ha'ish, right? We have that Ashrei prayer that we have, right? It's talking about praising. He therefore opened the book of Tehillim, which is particularly dear to him, with the word praiseworthy, because it says praiseworthy is the man includes with another verse containing the word praiseworthy at the end of the chapter. So the word ashrei is a very important word. Praiseworthy are all those who trust in him. 154. So that's Tehillim 212. This teaching of Rabbi Yochanan seems difficult because the phrase praiseworthy are all who trust in him appears at the conclusion of the second chapter of Tehillim, not at the conclusion at the first chapter. You must therefore say that the first two chapters of Tehillim are really one long chapter. Okay, who wants to read note 1? Okay, so we're saying that it's, hi Dan, it's more than, the first two chapters are actually one. They're saying here because of the way it and who wants to read note 1 on page 154?
I'll do it, Rabbi, if someone else wants to.
Okay.
154, note 1. Rabbi Yochanan states that any chapter that was especially dear to David, he began and ended with a verse containing the word praiseworthy, ashrei. This is puzzling because the first chapter of Tehillim is in fact the only chapter that begins and ends with ashrei. Tosafos answers that Rav Yochanan did not mean to limit his teaching to chapters that begin and end specifically with the expression ashrei. Rather, he meant that any chapter that begins and ends with the same expression was dear to David. And as an example of this phenomena, he mentioned the first chapter, which begins and ends with the expression ashrei. There are, in fact, a number of chapters in Tehillim that begin and end with the same expression, such as the many chapters that begin and end with the word hallelujah. Chachamim enumerates 15 chapters in Tehillim that start and end with the same expression.
So hallelujah means we're praising God. Hallelujah, right? And the Christians sort of think it's theirs, right? They say hallelujah, hallelujah, praise God, right there. Anyway, it came from us first before they can get to the hallelujahs. So they don't use the word ashrei, but they seem to love the word hallelujah. They love the word Yeshu for Jesus, right? Savior, right. Yeshua, his name. I like to know what his mother called him. Yoshua, I don't know.
It's probably hey you. That's what I
hey, out the garbage.
If he wasn't, was he an only child?
I don't think so. Brother, right?
As far as I don't know, I think he had siblings, but they're not talked about too much.
Yeah.
So, so his mother called out all the other siblings' names first, and finally
Right.
got his.
And the dogs.
Christ, what's going on here? No, we can actually have a class on that in the summer. What was it like to be around Jesus in his day? We're gonna actually have a class on that. So look forward to it.
Cool.
So everyone will figure out and try to figure out what it was like to be in Jesus's time. Okay. Having mentioned the verse, Tamu Chatim in Aretz, the Gemara tells a story regarding the verse, Hanu Birone Dahu. Okay, so what is that? There were these crude people. Okay, Alan, you want to continue with who are these crude people?
Sure. See Rashi. Others explain Brione to mean Jewish bandits.
Okay, that's interesting. So there were these people who were crude, and they were banditos. And they were They were in Rob Meir's neighborhood, who were harassing him greatly. So he said, God, praying for heavenly mercy concerning them, that they should die. What happens early? Number 3, that they should die.
Simply understood, Rav Meir was praying for heavenly mercy for himself in regard to the crude people, meaning that the crude people should die and stop harassing him. Strictly translated, however, the Gemara's words mean that he was praying for mercy for the crude people themselves. Maharasha therefore understands that Rav Meir prayed that they should die and thereby stop sinning, which would be an act of mercy toward them. Since the more a person sins in this world, the greater his punishment in the next world will be. This is in line with the statement in the Mishnah in Sanhedrin 71b that death for the wicked is beneficial for them because they stop sinning.
Yeah,
And
you come from a different.
beneficial for the world.
You believe that in other religions that's the case. So we're gonna tell you that they should die because the more you sin, the greater you get. You're gonna get punished in the next world. So die, and so you won't be punished. Do you believe in that from your religion that you were raised in, Deanne?
No, I mean, we didn't really, I think the religion that I was raised in, we didn't talk about the next life that you'd had. It's always you just die and you go to heaven. So it's interesting to think, it makes sense how they could say, if they stop sinning, they'd have a better off life the next go around. But it's interesting. I've never had that sort of thought of, well, if we just end them here and now, then at least they'd be better off the next go around, hopefully. So that's an interesting thing for me to think about, because normally you'd just say you'd never want anyone to die and pass away. You'd still want them to have the opportunity to make a change or have the realization to make the change. So
So
I think
Deanne,
go ahead.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Rabbi.
go ahead, Arlie.
It makes sense to me in a way, but it's contrary to Jewish beliefs. Jewish belief is that every human life is valuable.
Right.
Do they mean is it just every Jewish life? But I think it means every human life is valuable.
You know what? If people only believe this, they wouldn't be so evil. If people, what do you think, Dan? You grew up a different religion. If people believe this, that you're going to pay the price for being bad in this world, then people wouldn't be so bad. I heard nightmare stories about people's lives today. I mean, just listening in the pool today, I mean, people undergo such, people are the cause of such, Sharon, you ever see that in life? People are the cause of such animosity and hatred and jealousy towards others. If they knew what was waiting them, Sharon, they wouldn't be acting that way. You believe that? If they knew what was going on the other side, right, Sharon, they wouldn't act this way, would they?
Truthfully, I think if people are acting that way, they're not thinking about what it's going to be like on the other side.
yeah.
True.
Really and truly, I think that if people do evil, they're only thinking about what their life is like on this side, and they're not really giving any credence. They think that at the end of their life, that's just the end. They don't think about where they're going in an afterlife. That's my thought.
Yeah, it's like they're only thinking about that moment right now.
Exactly.
What is it that I want right now for me without any regard?
Exactly. Even people who are premeditating doing evil, they're
Yeah.
only thinking about what they're going to do in that moment. That becomes their ultimate goal, is to commit that evil. They don't even think about what the consequences are going to be after they commit it. But those are people that are really off the end, I think.
Well, God's got an elaborate computer system. God watches everything.
I
in a way.
know.
And
Wow.
I think that that if people that I grew up with that are very righteous like that, that believed in it, they were such good people. The people that didn't believe that God was watching, they committed these heinous crimes and they spent time in jail. Talking about many of my neighbors, they didn't believe that God was watching. Even though they were Orthodox, they still didn't really believe in that concept that God was going to watch them. They
You know
thought,
what? Truthfully, Rabbi, today I'm having a really tough time in believing that God is watching over us, and that people who
why?
Because that's why I'm so silent today. I've probably got 5 or 6 really good friends, good people, just wonderful people who have cancer. And I think to myself, why? You know, if there truly is this wonderful God, which I truly believe in, I believe in God, I always have, but just today,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
and of course, this is coming on the end of going to 2 funerals, as you know,
Right.
within
Yep.
2 days of one another, of 2 really good people. You and I knew both of these,
Yeah.
even though they were in their 90s. I don't think of it in chronological. I mean, Bernie was in his 80s and Marty was in his 90s, but just really good people. Why are they being taken now? So I'm just really sad tonight. So forgive me if I'm just very quiet, but
You know, Sharon,
it
it's very,
really puts a different perspective on today, on how I'm feeling about.
you know, it's very difficult to deal with sorrow when you look at the world around us. It's hard to say, well, what's going on? Look at Israel yesterday. I mean, why would God be allowing Jews on the brink of a civil war where I had visions of the 60s with blacks in America, with people using hoses on other Jews? I mean, yeah, I mean, say, why would God do that to the people that are good enough to be living in the land of Israel? But the more sometimes we understand God, we will take a crack at trying to understand it, the more that we will never understand. Things happen for a reason, but the reason is hidden from us. Maybe Bernie and Sid Gitless from our class know now, but we're not necessarily privy to that while we're still struggling with it. And I feel for you, because it was hard for me to do those funerals for people that was so good in life, and yet the ending was tough. And even if look at Marty's wife at the funeral, I mean,
I don't know how much longer it's going to be.
it's hard to imagine someone with so much pain that has to suffer like that, and that can't even stay for the funeral of their own husband. So, yeah.
If you want to talk about a wonderful, wonderful family, like I
Yeah.
happen to know that you knew Bernie and his family, but I happen to know the Morgenstein family very well because my parents were best friends with them. So I just look at the goodness of this family and how they're suffering now. And you're looking at the goodness of Bernie and all the people that he knew in the Colchester area and all the good that he did, you know. And I miss him in this class, and I knew him as a dentist for 40 years, but I was never close to him like you guys were.
Well, we were lucky to have him in the class for so many years that we got to know him that way. But
So
Sharon, can I say that we had a conversation this week in our house, because there's something difficult that we're going through as well, not a death. But it's the same situation where you wonder why. And sorry.
no, it's okay. Really, truly, coming off of this weekend, Deanna, I'm telling you, I'm right where you are.
Yeah. Well, and the discussions that I've had with Scott is being tested, right? Being tested as far as my faith and everything. And I didn't know Bernie personally. He didn't know that I knew of him, I don't think. But all the times that Scott was going to classes, I used to hear Bernie talk about the Kabbalah and I remember early on when I used to sit on Tuesday nights and hear while he was doing classes and I was folding laundry or whatever silly thing it was. There were certain ones of you that really connected with me unknowingly with what you said, and Bernie didn't know that I was listening, but I talked with Scott about him a lot and the things that I heard him say. And I think in reference to the point of being tested is I didn't know him personally. And now that he's gone, I don't suffer as much of the loss because I didn't get to know him as person.
Yeah, you didn't know him like we did. But listen,
no,
I know.
But he did something good for me. And I think I want to be able to take that and move on with it. And I think about him if he's in his next life.
Not
and
yet.
God has a plan for whatever his next life is going to be, who he might help, because he was so helpful for so many here, you know.
Right, he was.
So there's a lot of good that he could be doing or going forward, you know.
Well,
But I understand your feelings, Sharon. So
I got to tell you, Sharon was there for Bernie's funeral as well as Marty Morgenstein's. But I think what I've heard from Elliot, and he's talked to me about message he's gotten from both families, I think the families are just so happy that we were there, you know, that our Talmud class was there for Bernie's funeral. Family was very appreciative, and the Morgenstein family was very appreciative that Elliot and I and Sharon, they were all at the restaurant for a few hours having good time, remembering things about Marty, about Lebanon, about life. And I tell you, the family was really appreciative. And what else can we do? We're here to comfort the family. That's what we're here for. So the fact that the family sees that people, from the notes that Elliot got, the fact that, you know, Elliot has a long time relationship with both families, and the fact that we're there.
Both Elliot and Paul were
And Paul Plotkin.
Plotkin. They were very helpful for me because they both had relationships with both families.
Right.
So when I went to Marty's funeral, coming off of Bernie's, I was going to a funeral that I was close with the family. And it was nice to have two other people who were close with the Morgensteins. So I felt comfort in that, having both Elliot there, because they have a longer history with the Morgensteins
Right.
than I do, because they go back to high school and grammar school
Right.
and Hebrew school.
Yeah, school
You
together.
know, and my association with them started about maybe 40 years ago. So I knew, you know, Maureen and Robin and Stephen as adults already. And Pammy I've known since she was born.
Oh, Pammy? Okay, she's 42.
Yeah.
That's the number of
42.
years.
So that's about, I didn't know Maureen when she was pregnant, but I knew Pammy starting when she was about 2 years old.
Well,
The same age as my cousin's daughter.
well, the one thing I learned from the funerals, the both of them, is that when I came to town here, someone said I was like too stiff at the first one. I'm still friendly with the Markowitzes, and Sharon, you know them very well.
Yeah.
After
Another family that my parents were very,
after
very close.
funeral, someone told me, Steve Slopak said, lighten up a little at the funeral. Don't be so uptight at it. And you knew Leonard Markowitz, but you know, when you're dealing with Holocaust survivor types of families, I just thought it should be very serious. And when you heard Bernie's kids talk about it with humor, you heard me talk about it with humor. You heard it, Marty Morgenstein's, most of you weren't there. You heard the granddaughter Pam was telling some funny stories. So I think, Sharon, knowing both of them, I think the funny stories help the family. And I can understand why someone told to me 28, almost 29 years ago that you have to lighten up, because the family, it's not like the old days where the people had to pay for mourners to cry at the funeral. We're not in that state anymore, right? So we're here to help them and to remember them. And sometimes it's a humorous way. Arlene, do you think it's disrespectful to tell funny stories about someone that just died?
No, and in fact, I think if you can tell a funny story about something, it tells a lot about a person and their character. You know, and I've always had I've probably said this to all of you individually. Death is a strange and funny thing. If you'll excuse that expression. We are all born to die. We all know we're going to die. We just don't know when we're going to die. So it's definitely it's a tragedy to lose a loved one. But I wonder, you know, in recent years, we rejoice over the person who lived in their death. And I've always wondered why we haven't done more of that. It's really, really sad. I don't know. I mean, I know from my own losses, but the memories you take with you and the, I don't really know how to explain it well enough, but I think that we're all meant to pass. Some of us tragically young, some of us lucky to be older. It's never too old. You know, you can be 109, it's too young to pass away. But my father, who was the best of men, died at 58. You know, so you just don't know.
And Marcy's father also died young.
60.
Yeah. And
No,
so I
Yeah.
think, you know, I don't know how God wants it to be, or what God is trying to teach us in this. But it just seems to me that after we grieve, and we should all grieve in our own way, that we rejoice in that person's life, that we had that chance to know them. Someone said this to me, I don't know how many years ago, probably 50 years ago, and I never forgot it. Be happy, and it wasn't with someone I knew and liked, but it wasn't like an immediate family member. Be happy for the years you had the chance to know that person.
That's a great expression. I love
And-
that expression.
And I think we should dwell more on that, because I think we're all going to pass. You know, I'm not ready. I'm not anxious to go. Some go more tragically than others. Why? I don't know. But I think everything is a teaching moment.
Yeah,
Even though it's painfully hard to see people who are very ill, and you know, I didn't know the gentleman who died most recently, Marty.
Marty.
But it seems like, you know, must have been a lot of illness in that family. It must be tough to see. I'm not sure that God means it to be something they did. I'm not sure it's not some kind of a lesson for us. You know, Bernie, Bernie was in his late 80s, and that's still sort of a young man in these days. But he had a long life, and he seemed to have a good life, and he liked Colchester. So it's sad that he passed. I will miss him. I'll miss his humor. But to have had the chance to get to know him as I did, I'm forever thankful.
And I never thought,
honestly, I wasn't enamored with Bernie when I first met him.
oh, really?
And if it weren't for Torah study, I never would have gotten to know the real guy and love him as much as I did in my own heart. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why. I just didn't warm up to him. And
It could
over,
warm up.
yeah. And over time, I just saw what a smart guy he was, and his sense of humor.
Well, brilliant guy, actually.
Yeah,
That's
right.
smart.
His outlook on life.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
And I hear he was a good dentist too.
Yeah, I really,
A very reliable source.
I loved him.
I think we have to spend more time remembering people in a good way and in rejoicing in them. I try to practice this. We know our loved ones are going to pass away.
Well, I think the thing is that we have to show appreciation every day. You never know when someone, I was telling Marcy that I have a person I go see every 2 weeks, and I got a call from the doctor at the practice, St. Francis, that she's not coming back. It's indefinite leave of absence because both her parents in 50s, they were both killed in a head-on collision in Virginia. So, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in life. But I just think that with our study and the way we all live life, all of us here, I think we all try to live life to the fullest, right? And that's all we do, because we're not, no one's ever promised tomorrow, but we can't, I can't go to sleep with regrets. Why didn't I do this? Why did I do that? I try to do everything that I could possibly do in the day, because you put it off to tomorrow, and then the day may not have an opportunity for you to take advantage of what you need to, right?
You know, we all have regrets, I think, and I have mine, but I try every day. I can't go back and correct what I did. So I have really no choice but to go forward and do good things and make sure that I do things that will never make up for my regrets, but hopefully will help someone else in their life path somehow. And you know, I think I always felt this way, and I feel certain ways about things, but studying Torah, studying Talmud, it has just made that grow in me and more meaningful to me.
Yeah, we're just
Being in this class,
Yes.
this class of people, You know, you can't always get 6 or 8 people together that just plain like each other and just plain get along just because of who we are. Doesn't matter how much money we have, doesn't matter what house we live in, doesn't matter if we reach the corporate ladder or not. We just are who we are because we are who we are. And that's what I love the most about this class.
So I think you just have to continue to love God. And I don't think you can disparage or dislike God because something happens that I'll speak for myself, because something happens that I don't like.
Right.
You know, I know that sometimes I could go down that path a little, but I very quickly and come back. I have to believe that there's a reason, that God's teaching, that God's showing us something. And I think that's one of the tests. It's, you know, in a sense, it's almost like
It's our road
the golden ram, right?
It says it wasn't connected to the
That
internet.
God's not around, so we went to something else. And we built our own idol.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of the same thing. Is something bad happens and you say, well, that God's not real good. And then you have to continue to believe.
You know, I was listening to my rabbi give a lecture yesterday on the mystical practices of Passover, and he said something that I look at the boxes that we have on for tonight. He said that Baal Shem Tov gave a teaching yesterday. He said the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, he said when he had classes, there weren't big classes. He said in his synagogue, there weren't a ton of people. It was small. Even in his day, it wasn't necessarily the numbers. It was the people that, as Bernie would say, committed, you know, that had kavanas, the people that were really into the prayers, and they would spread the kavana or the intention all throughout the room. That, Neil, what do you think about that? That it's not necessarily the number of people we had Friday night. Yeah, we had a packed chapel, but it was the fact that we were there for a purpose, and everyone that came mostly knew Bernie, and it sent a good message to the universe and to Bernie in heaven. What do you think, Neil, about that statement?
It's, you know, it's the old story, quality over quantity. Nothing trickier than that. You know, the people that were there for Bernie were there for Bernie, and that's, you know, what, you know, nothing tricky going on there. That was the whole story.
But I know some, but Neil, I know some think, oh, I wish we had 100 or 200 people. Hey, that's not the community we're in, but you can make the best you can with 15 to 20 people. I mean, I when I first came here, Neil, Paul Plotkin's father, Herb Plotkin, he wanted people to come out, but it's just in this community, people never flocked on a Friday night or Saturday, like when I grew up, like your grandfather in Norwich, Orthodox shul, people would come every Friday. It's not that type of community, but we make the best of all the people that have come in and out of that chapel over the last 29 years.
There were not a lot of people that came to Brothers of Joseph. That the shul wasn't packed on Friday night or Saturday morning. Many times I would hear Morty Ziegler say they didn't even have a minyan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there, like Neil said, it's really the quality. It's not the quantity. We had a study session. So Rabbi Wolbowski sends his regards, by the way. We had a study session with him on Sunday, and there were 7 of us. And we had the best study session. I mean, you know, it's really the quality of the people that are there and the quality of the speaker.
Right.
That, you know, like we all come on Tuesday nights. I mean, it's rare that you have less than 5 or 6 people in Talmud class.
I'm trying to get them too involved.
Well, you know what? It takes a teacher sometimes. I gotta tell you, it's not like that, Sharon. But my buddy, you know, I study with him every. Take a certain teacher like Rabbi Wolbowski to draw people out and to make it interesting all the time for the 7 or so people that are there. Not everyone could do it. I go to some classes during the week. I can't go now because of other commitments, but it's not that interesting, really. Even with 6 or 7 people, just not that interesting. Not everyone can have that wonderful energy and charisma that some rabbis have or not even rabbis or even teachers.
Well, you got to keep it interesting and motivating, or else you're right. You're not going to get the people to come.
Okay, so Scott, welcome. Is that Scott? Are you on, Scott, or is that Dan? That's Dan's.
That's
Okay.
Dan. She's
Neil, comment before we start?
Sorry, I'm just navigating kids here. Sorry.
Oh, God
I
bless you.
saw them come in. I almost waved.
God bless them. Okay, so are we ready to start the Talmud? It's now 6:37.
That's what I got.
Is Marty not coming?
Change of books.
I don't know. I didn't hear from him. I hope he realizes it's Tuesday.
I never know what day it is, so who knows?
Does
I'm
anyone know,
gonna make some tea.
as Chicago said, does anyone know what time it is? Yeah. Okay, so are we on 75B4? Are we at the new Mishnah I have?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
75B4, yes.
So anyway, it looks like the book, we'll probably be finished with it after Shavuos. So we'll probably finish after Shavuos. We'll probably finish it and get another and start again after the holiday of Shavuot. So probably around my birthday, I assume around June, we'll probably have the honor of starting the last volume in Baba Metzia, which is volume 3. Does everyone have volume 3?
Yes.
No,
Again, I keep threatening to call him up and I never do.
Okay. Well, we have time, Neil. You have 3 months probably. So
Okay, I have 3 months before I need the new book. Okay.
Yeah, 43.
So
Okay,
watch
43.
within probably before the 3 months is up, there'll be a coupon from them if you're on their
really?
mailing list. If I get
I
one, I'll
already
pass
have
it
mine
along.
because I used the coupon the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I got
too.
it from you, Arlene.
Yes.
Oh,
someone
Arlene,
it's an email, so I can pass the email along. They'll give it to anybody.
Oh,
You
yeah,
get-
good.
Because
good.
I didn't have 41, so I started on 42, and I think as soon as you said we were gonna do 43, I went and did it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're doing chapter 6, which is the final chapter in this book. And when we have the feast a week from Wednesday, we're gonna have that breakfast. We're gonna do a siyum. I'm gonna do it on this book. So I'm gonna go to the end because I've been studying it privately myself to go over it. So we're gonna discuss the end of it, which is
Rabbi, do you have a new weekly? Because my last weekly is March 19th.
So it's
Scott didn't give it to me yet. I gave him to finalize this week's, but I haven't gotten it yet back. So
Uh-huh.
right
Okay.
then, tell Scott I'm waiting for. I gave him my added stuff, but I haven't gotten it
Okay, I
back.
just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Oh, I hope it'll go out tonight, but it depends on when I get it back from Scott. Okay, so we're dealing with the hiring of workers and renting of animals, and the first mission is dealing with situations which workers or employees fail to abide by the terms of the agreement. So, Neil, are you the leadoff guy normally for the notes?
I
75?
guess, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll do this page.
Asocher et ha'umanin. So hasocher means when you're hiring in Hebrew, and uman in modern Hebrew is a craftsperson. So when you're hiring a craftsman, number 1, Neil.
The Talmud generally deals with 2 types of laborers, a day worker and a contractor. The basic difference between the two is that a day worker is hired by the day and is paid for his time, whereas a contractor is hired to complete a specific job. The term craftsman is used here to denote both types of workers, says Tosafos. Maharshal adds that the term craftsman is sometimes used to denote workers hired for the job to the exclusion of workers hired by the day. Later, the Tana uses the term oman, and it's possible that the more limited meaning is intended there, seen below note 10.
Rabbi, are we studying in memory of Bernie tonight?
We are studying in memory of Bernie tonight, Yechiel, the wonderful Yechiel, the soul of Yechiel ben Mendel Sorachaya. We'll use the mother's name too, Sorachaya, was the mother's name? His mother's name.
Yeah,
Yes. So we're going to be studying the entire month, by the way, in all classes, all 3 on Tuesday and 3 on Wednesday, all 6 during the week will be in memory of Bernie. Okay. Vehitu ze et ze, and they deceived one another. Number 2.
That is, one party deceived the other. The Gemara below will present several interpretations of this.
Ein lahem ze al ze ele tar omot. So what does that mean? They can have nothing but complaints against another. They have no monetary claim. Number 3.
That is, from an ethical standpoint, the injured party has a justifiable complaint against the offender, but he is not entitled to any monetary compensation. The reason why such complaints are justified is explained by the Gemara. It is unclear whether the injured party's right of complaint has any strict legal ramifications. At the very least, it means that the injured party has the right to bear a grudge against the offender and will not transgress any of the related Torah prohibitions for doing so.
even if you're harming his reputation, if you're not telling the truth and you're harming his reputation?
Well, that would be, I don't know if that would have a monetary, I mean, certainly in modern times, you could sue under as libel or some
Right.
such. But I rather doubt that they had such, picayune, or I'm not word picayune. I doubt if they had such things conceptually then.
But you would think, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Neil, but you would think that just in general conversation, I don't think, I didn't think someone did a good job. And I just say that, I don't know that I have any real proof of it. And I say that to other people, maybe they won't hire him and they'll go to, or her, and they'll go to some other person.
That's the problem.
So I don't think it's a compensation from, in a way, it's compensation for money, because if I have denied them work, then I have the money.
You got to prove that this actually happened.
Right.
That indeed, they didn't hire you because somebody made nasty comments about you. Maybe they weren't going to hire you anyway. Maybe the person actually didn't make nasty comments. Maybe a whole bunch of things.
Right.
So.
Okay.
That was 3.
Okay. The mission is discussing now workers who renege on they come into work and thereby cause some sort of loss. Okay, so these people are reneging on what they said. Sachar et hachamar vet hakadar. Chamar is a donkey. So if you hired a donkey driver or a kadar, a wagon driver.
The term potter refers here to someone who owns a wagon. Presumably the term was chosen because potters often had wagons so they could more easily transport their wares. Alternatively, some commentators amend the Mishnah to read wagoner. Karar.
A wagoner, okay. Interesting, okay. Lahavi pur yafin. Deliver planed wood for the construction of a bridal canopy. 5.
Customary, a canopy could be held over a bride on her wedding day as she was escorted in a festive procession from his father's house to the house of the groom.
Okay, so that was the ancient practice. B'chalilim lakala or lameit, or to deliver flutes for a bride or for the dead, lameit.
What's that? 6. The flutes were to be played at a wedding to bring joy to the bride and groom, or they were to be played at a funeral to bewail the deceased. Presumably, the workers who were to deliver these things were hired by the family of the new couple or of the deceased. If either the wood or the flutes did not arrive on time for the wedding or the funeral, this would not, strictly speaking caused the family a monetary loss. Nevertheless, since these items were useful only at the time of the ceremony and not afterwards, the family could be deemed to have suffered a significant loss, albeit one that cannot be measured in financial terms. But it can. I mean, you just simply
Right.
don't pay them for giving this for the stuff that they're supposed to have delivered on time.
Right. I agree with you.
So this is sort of what you were saying, Arlene,
Yeah.
sort of something that
Right.
cannot be easily defined, or
But it's
cannot be
def-
monetarily defined.
But it's a definite loss.
Oh, yeah, no question.
Right.
See, I was taking it like that it was only gonna happen that one time, that it would matter at that one time. I was taking it the other way.
But even if it's one time,
You would never get that chance again or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it'd be hard to rehire somebody who you hired once and ended up not trusting
Right.
or not coming through with what they were supposed to do. So I would personally be hard pressed to hire them again for fear that the same thing would happen.
Right.
oh, you have to sort of assume that even.
Right.
But what if what the person said wasn't really true? What if
Well, I
somebody
would get
said
into
something bad about someone else because they were mad at them because maybe that person got to do something that this other person didn't get to do. And so the person starts bad mouthing this other person, and the other person is really a good worker, but is getting a bad review from someone else. I would hope that the person who's saying something bad about this person cannot be trusted. So it wasn't really a trusted source, but you don't know.
No, you don't know. People will not necessarily know that it's, a lie, or that this is an untrustful person or hateful person.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
Which
you would
is-
score that one.
Which is why you shouldn't be a gossiper. I mean,
Exactly.
this is the lesson.
Another reason why you shouldn't, yes. And it's interesting how they're talking about the flutes. We talked about funerals, about people coming and professionally crying, but now we hear that the flutes were played to bewail the deceased too, which I don't know if most people knew that here, but now we know. And the
Yeah.
ancient instruments, which I don't think I haven't seen a funeral, any traditional funeral. Have you guys seen it with an instrument? I haven't really seen one.
Well, the last two
military.
funerals had instruments. They had trumpets.
Military.
The what?
Military honors. They had an instrument,
Oh.
both of them.
Oh, you're talking, yeah, you're talking,
Oh,
yeah, like a military,
No,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're
There
talking
were
that,
trumpets.
Yep.
that is something special for veterans, though. That's not part of a Jewish
Mm.
necessary. The Jewish ones had the professional wailers, and they had people play the flute, not as a military honor, but as a sign of finding a way to have some sad music played at the. Yeah, but you're right about the military honors. I know growing up that Orthodox world, we didn't have military honors.
So if you were in the service and, so if you were in the service, served your country well, and you passed away, you would not be allowed to do a salute to that person?
Well,
This is a curiosity question on my
Hmm.
part.
it depends on the situation, actually. You know what? In the right wing religious community I grew up with, it was not recognized when they didn't want to have these type of ceremonies that involved music and involved any type of flag presentation. They thought it took away from the funeral. So with me, Arlene, when I came here, I first one that had it, I said, you know what? I think it's a beautiful thing. I'm not telling the family they can't have it done, because to me, the person earned that honor. And to me, like for example, you won't find Orthodox people having Masonic rituals at the funeral. I don't care My grandfather was a Mason. No way in hell was anyone going to do any rules at my grandfather's funeral. That's just the way it is. But I've seen it done many times, including at Gary Littlefield's funeral. People love the Masonic order, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it if that's. But I remember the first time it happened, I was doing someone, Mr. Rogo, when they had
Yep.
it with the, I think it was Rogo, right? And when I had it, and someone said, "What? Their Masons are coming in to do something." I said, "Do you have an objection?" I said, "I don't know what it is. I'll see what it's like." So, when it comes to funerals, it depends on the type of funeral. Like, for example, someone dies at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. In Israel, they'll bury them at night. Okay? They'll bury them as soon as possible, not waiting the next day. Just the way it is in most cases. Among the religious, they're not waiting the next day. Over here, people say, well, I know there was a funeral that Mark Expan had to do. They had to wait 10 days for the family to come in from out of town. Now, the point is, when do you think the right kavod hamet, they call it, for the amount of honor you show the dead? What do you think? To wait 1 or 2 days for someone to come in, I don't have a problem. You want to wait 10 days for people to come from around the world? What do you think, Neil? Is that honorable to wait 10 days to bury someone?
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think
I
so.
mean, theoretically, it's supposed to be within a day, isn't it?
24 hours,
Orthodox.
unless it's Shabbat.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that true even of conservative and reform, Rabbi, or just Orthodox? I mean, I know it's true of Orthodox
Well,
to bury as soon as possible.
my parents' best day that we tried to do it it didn't work in my father's case. My grandmother had to come over from France. Yeah, it was well intended, but it didn't work out that way. So yeah, among the religious, they try to do it as soon as possible, and because of the respect for the person that died. But I usually have to wait 2-3 days in our tradition. Like even Marty Morgenstein, Sharon, we didn't do it the next day.
No, because he died on, I think it was Thursday night, and the funeral was Sunday. It was the same thing with my mother. My mother died on Saturday, and we didn't have the funeral till Thursday. But, well, but the thing is that both my father, my father and I were in Florida because we had to bring the body up to Connecticut. So sometimes there are
Right.
extenuating circumstances when you have to move the body from another state to bring it to the state that it's going to be. Because my mother was truly Orthodox, I mean, her father was an Orthodox rabbi. So we followed, very closely, but there were extenuating. It was the same thing with my dad. We had to bring his body up from Florida to Connecticut. So,
Well, in the old days, of course, everyone you knew and all your relatives were within rock throwing distance of where you
right,
live.
that's right.
I
Now
mean, that
you're
makes
very-
a difference. Like
Big
maybe
difference.
that 10-day person has children that can't get here till then or something.
Right,
People in the military or something may take
Right.
them days to get over here.
Mhm.
exactly.
But
Or in the
Rabbi,
case, or in the case of my father's father, who passed away in November years ago. I'm not sure the date right off the top of my head. In Michigan, we were all here, including my relatives from Michigan, but the plane with his body on it didn't fly because it was a snowstorm. So
Mhm.
we were all ready for the funeral, but we had to wait for my grandfather's body to arrive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's the thing. There's a
Rabbi,
state
I just have a question regarding, the flute, no flute, Masonic, no Masonic. Is it ever up to the family what they want?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
if
yeah.
they want to have the Mason or Masonic
Well-
funeral, isn't it up to them? Not to the rabbi?
But Sharon, yeah, I usually allow these things, but it's also up to the custom of the cemetery. Bottom line, it's the custom of the cemetery. So the cemetery has rules, right? Everyone has a charter, right, Arlene? There
Right.
are charter, and some things are allowed, some things aren't. Some cemeteries don't allow, like the Himmelsteins, pictures on the grave, like the homestead, the Himmelstein homestead. Some cemeteries don't allow that to be in their cemetery. So if you want that, you'll have to go to another cemetery. So basically, Elliot and I are on good terms. Elliot and I try to honor everyone's wishes, Sharon. Whatever Elliot and I decide, that's what happens. So I usually get along with him, and we never had any issues. So I try to honor the cemetery's customs, and I try to honor the family's wishes.
Does Elliot make the ultimate decision?
Elliot and I together usually make the decision. Yeah, we usually agree. Can't remember a time when we disagreed. So it's usually good when you respect one another. There's some synagogues where the cemetery person does not always see eye to eye with the rabbi, and that causes a lot of agita. And you don't want to have that, with families and going against their wishes. I try to honor the wishes, Sharon, but not every cemetery is going to do that.
Interesting.
And as you know, there's many synagogues that have cemeteries in this country, and some people allow certain things, some people don't. And I just think that in our cases, everyone, we try to do as best I can to honor the family's wishes. Usually it doesn't violate anything at our synagogue. As you know, I've allowed Masonic rites when he wants it. I don't care what anyone says. Not usually people won't say anything to me, but if the family wants to have some secular songs, I've allowed that too. In the case of when Phyllis, when the Fleischmans were buried, the granddaughter wanted to sing a song, which some people might not have said was appropriate, but she checked with me, and I said for Lois Fleischman that the granddaughter can sing that song. So they checked with me, and I said, it's okay. And that's what the family wants to do. She has a beautiful voice. That's the song she chose, and I allowed a secular song to be sung. So. Like even look at the services the last 2 weeks. When people passed away, remember Karen, we did Joy to the World, and the family seemed to like that. That's not a Friday night song. And this week we did Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree. The family really liked that. It's not a traditional Shabbat song, but try to honor wishes.
Well, I think traditionally, how to say this? Bernie's service would have been frowned upon. It was full of humor.
Right. In the old days, when I grew up.
In the old days, right. In the old days, his children all talked about him. They all told funny stories about him. And that was not your traditional funeral. I happen to like it better. I happen to like it better than the traditional funeral. Trust me, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's different from our tradition.
I started off my eulogy to my dad with a funny line. My dad always wanted me to marry a nice, rich Jewish doctor. And I said, well, Dad, I got 3 out of 4. So, people, but I think I'm not going to say I enjoyed Bernie's funeral because it was a funeral and
Can't use that word.
I'm sad that he's gone, but let's just say that it wasn't a funeral that I would have fallen asleep at because it was just so interesting to learn so many things about him that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
The funeral was a real tribute to him.
Exactly. It really
And
was.
in some ways it was enjoyable because you laughed and you thought good things about Bernie. I laughed and I thought good things about Bernie.
Exactly.
So,
I like to.
enjoyable is sort of a rough word for this occasion, but reality, it made you smile about the man.
Well, the family said it was meaningful to them, so maybe I like that word. It was meaningful. Yeah. I'm not there to entertain people at a funeral, right? But I did my best I can with some of the humor and talking about humor. But people in the family, they thought that we did a great job. Everyone that was there, and it was meaningful to them. That's the bottom line. I wanted people to feel that we're doing a meaningful service.
I think it was very meaningful and very respectful.
Right. And just because the humor was so important to him that
Right.
How could you not? You would think you weren't even talking about him if we
But,
didn't
you know,
have it.
Think about it. If he could have stood up there and done his own eulogy, we would have been laughing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that would have been a miracle.
Yeah, I'm not saying it could happen, but you never know.
Okay, so that was number 6. Okay, now we're getting to flax. Ufalim halot pishtatel min hamishra. What steeping water? Number 7. What is that? Steeping water.
7. The flax plant was and still is commonly cultivated for the purpose of making linen. After flax is harvested, the stalks are soaked in water in order to loosen the fibers. Following the soaking process, which may last several weeks, the stalks are dried and beaten to remove the fibers. Finally, the fibers are separated by combing and are spun into linen. If the flax is soaked too long, it will decay, and the owner will thereby suffer an irretrievable loss. That was 7.
Moving on. That was lucky 7's flax. I just had flax soil. Okay. The Chodavar She'aved. Or what happens if you hire them to do anything which, if not performed, would cause the loss of Chazar Vehen, and they reneged on the commitment and refused to work. So what's the law here? Makom, in a place, She'ein Sham Adam, where there is no other people. The employer could hire at a comparable wage. So what happens? So the employer may hire other workers, even it could be exorbitant wages, to replace the first worker, and the first workers must subsidize these wages. 8.
8. The extent to which the first workers are responsible to pay the wages for the second ones is discussed by the Gemara and Rishonim later, 78. Ritva states that the workers are liable even if they had not yet formally formalized their agreement with the employer through a binding act of opinion. This is because the employer relied upon them to do their job, and their failure to carry through with their promise will cause him a loss, says Ritva and Sirashi and Tosfos. That was 8.
You think Marty forgot that it's Tuesday? Should I be giving him a reminder on Tuesday? Hey, it's Tuesday, Marty.
You might have to.
I never know what day it is, so it's always possible.
If I miss a Tuesday, boy, shame on me for not knowing what day it is, but I can see it happening sometimes.
We'd all be texting you. Where are you?
What day is it? Where the heck are you? Is it Tuesday? Or Matan? You may trick the first workers into working for him. Number 9.
The Gemara later will explain how he may go about tricking them. If there are substitute workers available at reasonable wage, however, the first workers have no liability, and the employer may not resort to these measures.
I'm confused.
How
Always
so?
possible.
So is this saying that, so the first workers, so these workers are hired to do a job,
Yeah.
but they don't do the job, so the employer hires a second set of workers to do the job that the first workers were supposed to do. And the employer is saying that the first workers have to pay the second workers to do the job that the first workers were supposed to do?
Only if the amount that he has to pay the second batch is exorbitantly more than he would have paid the first batch.
So the first workers would only pay the difference between the reasonable wage and the exorbitant wage?
That's what I got.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's not so simple. Yeah.
To think that you go to work, and if you don't complete your job and your employer hires someone else at a higher rate, then even though you're still an employee and not an employer, you have to pay the difference that your employer is paying to that second person.
Yeah, I think that's what it's saying. That's what I got.
Oh my God.
I don't think that has any relevance to modern day, however, but would have been interesting then.
Yeah, I don't think it would fly today.
No, I mean, and I mean, wouldn't you fire the first person before you hire a second person to do the job
Oh, yeah,
because the first person
Hmm.
wasn't doing it?
I would assume so.
Wow.
Well, if you look at it today, might take you months to fire somebody and
Well,
you need
these
to get the
can't-
work done. So
Mhm.
I sort of think if you're not doing your job and they got to hire someone else to do it, then it might be fair for you to contribute to that person's wage.
I could see the logic of this.
Yeah.
The logic, yes. I don't know about it happening. but-
Could you
Like, I
just
don't know.
see it though? Oh man.
Like, or maybe it's to motivate that first worker to do the job and do it correctly, because otherwise they're going to hire someone else and that first worker is going to have to pay the difference in wages. So it would motivate that first person to do the job,
A lot of logic there.
right?
In fact, I would think not only would he be paying the difference, but he wouldn't have gotten paid for his job that he didn't do
Right.
besides. So he would end up net loss on the whole proceedings.
Exactly.
You're right. Right.
Yeah, I see that.
Wow, why didn't they keep that going in today's world? Holy cow, we have a whole lot of better workers out there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I thought I was reading that wrong.
No, you got it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with you reading it.
Wow. Okay.
Commissioner is continuing discussing a case now which the employer does not suffer irretrievable loss when workers fail to honor their commitment to work. With Sokerata Umanin. If you hired craftsmen and so mid task they renege on the commitment and refuse to complete the job, what happens? They have the lower hand, that is, their wages are calculated in the way least favorable to them. Okay, we got a little diagram here. Yeah.
Since the contractor reneged in mid-task, he obviously is compensated only for the part of the job that he completed. That wouldn't have been contractor. That would have been the tradesman. That would have been the craftsman, I mean. There are, however, two conceivable ways to calculate this payment, and depending on the circumstances, each would yield a different result. The first way is simply to prorate his wages, which is what I would have thought. If the worker completed half the job, he would be given half the amount due him had he completed the whole job. If he completed a third of the job, he would receive a third of his full wage. The second way is to pay him the full wage minus whatever the employer must spend or hire other workers to complete the task. The difference between the two methods arises when the price of labor rose or fell between the time that the workers were first hired and the time they quit. We'll check the chart in a moment. In these cases, the Mishnah teaches that the wages shall be calculated according to the method that works to the employer's advantage and the worker's disadvantage. In this part of the Mishnah, the Tana is at least referring to workers hired for the job. Whether or not the Tana also means to penalize workers hired by the day if they withdraw before they complete the job is discussed in the Gemara later, 77 AD. And okay, that stops here. Okay, so we see scenario A, labor cost. I'm not going to read this chart to you. You can read the chart yourself, but
Okay.
labor costs for the entire job rise from 6 dinars to 8 dinars, and if it falls from 6 dinars to 4 dinars. So we have the two methods defined, and we can figure out what exactly is owed to the workers.
Okay, you don't have to read the whole chart.
I'm not going to go through the chart for you. You're all capable of reading charts.
Okay. Okay, so those are the dinars. Okay. Okay, so wow, this Mission is continuing 76 day. We'll never get to the Talmud. In Baal Habayit Chozerbo. So Baal Habayit is usually the homeowner. If the employer reneges on his commitment and does not permit the workers complete the task assigned them, what happens? Yadoah Tachtona. He has a Tachton is a lower. He has the lower hand. That is, the wages must be paid are figured at the way least favorable to him. Number 1, second page today. Who wants to volunteer next? Who's next on?
I can take it.
Okay, Arlene, you're up next.
If the cost of labor declined and the task could be completed more economically with other workers, he pays his fired workers their full wages, less the wages he gives to the new workers. In effect, this passes on the benefit of the cheaper labor to the fired employees. If the cost of labor rose, however, the employer pays the fired workers full prorated wages, that is half the agreed upon pay for half the work, which in effect places the burden of paying the higher costs upon the employer. Tosafos add that when the cost of labor rises and the fired workers are paid their prorated wages, these wages must be figured according to their original agreement. They cannot claim prorated compensation based on the new higher pay scale. Rambam discusses the degree of liability borne by the employer in the event that his fired workers cannot find other work. Oh, that's a strange one.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing the job, why would you help them find other work or be concerned?
Well, you got to wonder if they're being fired because they didn't do the job or because the employer had some other motivation for firing them. His brother-in-law came along and he had to hire him instead.
Yeah, could be,
One of
but
those-
it doesn't, as yet, it has not put that into the picture. The picture is they didn't do the job.
No, I'm not getting that here. It just says if the employer reneges and does not permit the workers to complete the task. It doesn't say that they're doing a lousy job.
But I thought that's what we were saying above.
Above, yeah. I'm talking
Yeah,
about here.
so this note wages must be paid are, so it's talking about the wages, the wages that the employer must pay based on that statement above.
I don't know.
That's how I read it, but I could be wrong.
Nah.
If the employer reneges on his commitment and does not permit the workers to complete the task he assigned them, so that's
Yeah.
a little iffy. He has the lower hand, the wages must be paid, figured on the way least
Yeah.
favorable to him. Okay.
Right.
It's kind of like
Yeah,
hiring.
so it could be either. He just doesn't want them anymore, or they didn't do a good job.
Or he
Can do
found other workers that would do the same job for less money.
Yeah,
Kind of like in Miami, hiring Cuban people or Mexican people to build homes. I mean, they do that because those people will take a lower wage to accomplish the same task.
Yeah, when we lived in
Right.
Hebron, all of them were, and to the point where the foreman was studying Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, if the employer finds halfway through a task that there's all these other people that will finish the task for a lower wage, then he fires the people he has and he hires the people at a lower wage. And he pays full wages for the people that did half of the task. And now he's going to pay a lesser wage to finish it. May not be as good quality, but.
Yeah, well, that's not the criteria here.
We lose the rabbi?
I'm here.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, because we see your ceiling.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm here.
There you are.
That was
Uh-huh.
number one. Okay.
sideways, but
That was, well, that was number one. Okay. Ready for two. The mission is concluding now, saying that Kol HaMishana, any work who deviates from the specification of his assignment, Yado al Tachtona, has the lower hand in claiming compensation for his work. Numero dos.
An example of this is where an employer gave wool to a worker and asked him to dye it red, but the worker dyed it black instead, according to Rashi. If the amount that the material was improved by being dyed exceeds the expenses the dyer put into it, the dyer receives payment only for the expenses. Should the expenses exceed the improvement resulting therefrom, he is paid only for the improvement, according to Rashi. There is some question as to whether the value of the worker's labor, as defined by a day worker's average wage, is included in the reckoning of the worker's expenses. See Rashi and others.
So that sounds like even though the employer asked him to dye it red and the worker dyed it black, and then somebody comes along and wants to buy a black, whatever it is, wool, then now, even though the employer told him to dye it red and he dyed it black, he's going to be able to sell that wool to someone because he dyed it black.
Yeah.
Well,
In which case, what's the compensation?
So if the amount that was improved being dyed exceeds the expenses, the dyer receives payment only for the expenses. So in other words, the employer is going to get the rest of the money for selling it, but the employee will still get paid for dyeing it black, even though he was instructed to dye it red.
the employer doesn't necessarily have a buyer. He must just feel that it's a color he can sell.
Okay.
Okay,
How I look at it.
yeah.
So put it in stock and see if he can sell it.
Okay. Finishing up. Anyone who reneges on his commitment, Yado al Tachtona. Again, Tachtona is the lower, has the lower hand. Number three, last note.
The Gemara below in 77b will explain the meaning of this last phrase.
So the Mishnah said that if an employer hired craftsmen and they deceived one another, they can have nothing but complaints against one another. From the Mishnah's language, it's not immediately clear whether the employee and the craftsman deceive one another or whether one craftsman deceived the fellow craftsman. The Gemara wants to identify, clarify it. So it says, lo katai. The Tana did not waste, they reneged on the commitment to one another, which would have indicated the parties involved in the deception were the employer and the workers. Ella etu zevazeh, rather term stated rather around, the atku poalim ahadpe, which indicate that the workers deceive one another. There was one worker deceived another worker.
If the Tana had meant to speak of a breach of trust between the employer and the workers, he should have used the language of reneging, chazra, which would have more directly conveyed this idea. Evidently, the Gemara assumes that any deception between the employer and the workers would involve some sort of retraction. One of the parties would be reneging on his agreement to work for or to hire the other. The fact that the Tana used the more general language of deception indicates that he is describing a breach of trust between one worker and another worker. See Rashi, and see also Rashba, Ritva, and Nimachai Yosef. Jerusalem offers an entirely different interpretation of our Mishnah, according to which the language of Havnu Zoa Es Et Zoa
That's it, yeah.
describes a deception between employer and worker that does not in any way involve a retraction. See Rashba.
That was 4.
That was number 4. The Gemara defines the Mishnah's case further. Hechidami. Now, what is the case, Arlene? Number 5.
Now that the Gemara has determined that the parties involved in the case are 2 workers, it attempts to define the nature of the deception between them. That is, it attempts to find a way that one worker might deceive another, wherein the wronged party would have a legitimate complaint against the other, but no monetary claim.
So now the employer is out of the picture? It's just between the 2 workers?
Yeah, because that's what they figured out. It's just between the workers.
So that's
In this
different from the
case, yeah.
Mishnah.
In this example,
Yeah.
The Gemara defines the Mishnah case further. Hechidami. What's the case?
5.
Cinco. 5.
literally the master of the house.
No, 5.
Now
5.
the Gemara has.
I'm sorry. Now that the Gemara has determined that the parties involved in the case are 2 workers, it attempts to define the nature of the deception between them. That is, it attempts to find a way that one worker
Yeah.
might deceive another. I just read that.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
read that.
Okay, I'm sorry. The Amar Le Balabaitas. It's with the employer, number 6,
Literally the master of the house.
said to the certain worker, Zeal Ogerle Paulim. Go hire for me other workers to do a certain job. Basil Ihu Vatinu. And this co-worker went and hired another worker and deceived them. Gemara asks further, Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? How did he deceive them? I Damar Le Balabayat Ba'arba. If the Tana means that the employer asked the first worker to hire others at a rate of 4 zuzim a day, Basil Ihu Amar Lehu Batla. And the worker went and told the others that the employer was offering to pay a rate of only 3 zuzim a day, and the workers accepted the terms. Then what? Taromet my avidita. Then what are complaints doing here? Why does the Mishnah rule that the workers have legitimate complaint? Savorva Kabbalah. Each worker certainly considered the fact that he would receive only 3 zuzim and yet accepted the assignment anyway.
Number 7, since he freely chose to accept a wage of 3 zuzim, he can have no complaint that he was underpaid. See Rashi.
Okay. That's number 7. Okay. The Gemara is considering an alternative possibility. The Amarle Bal Habayat Bat Bitlata. The Tana means that the employer told the worker to hire others at a rate of 3 zuzim a day. Bazil Ihu Amar Lahu Ba'arba. And this first worker went and told the others that the employer was offering to pay 4 zuzim per day. At the end of the day, the employer gave them only 3. Then we must further ask, Hekidami, what is the case? That is, what precisely did the first worker tell the others? Or the Iamar Le Shkaram Alai. If he said to them, I will accept upon myself to pay your wages, not tivlahu medede. Let him pay the extra zuz to each worker from his own pocket.
Why does the Mishnah rule that the workers have nothing but a legitimate complaint, implying that they have no monetary claim? If the first worker accepted upon himself to pay others' wages, they may actually collect the extra zuz from him.
Okay. That was number 8. We continue further. Yavaita. The Tanya, it was taught in the Brisa, Hazucherta Poel Asato B'Shelo. If one hires a worker to perform a job in one's own field, Biru B'Shel Chavero, instructing the worker, he shows him the fields of his fellow, and the worker performs the work there instead. Notin lo schar b'shalom. The employer must give the worker his wages in full. And afterwards, the employer returns and takes from the owner of the field full compensation for that which benefited them.
The owner of the other field received an unexpected benefit in having workers improve his land. The employer is therefore entitled to demand fair compensation for having provided this benefit, meaning that he may demand the going rate local laborers would charge for such work. He may not, however, demand more than he himself paid to the workers, even if the value of their work exceeds what he paid them. Ramah, cited by Turkoshen, and the Baraisa's case is analogous to the case discussed by our Gemara. In both
Oh, okay, next page.
situations, one accepts responsibility to pay the wages of workers who ultimately perform work for someone else. Thus, since the Baraisa rules that the employer is fully liable for their wages, we can infer that the worker who hired others and told them that he would be responsible for their wages is also fully liable, meaning that he must pay them the 4th zuz he promised them. Technically, since the hiring worker deviated from the owner's instructions, he is not considered as having hired the workers as an agent, and he is liable for their entire wages. We speak only of the 4th zuz, however, reflecting Rashi, who writes that in the case discussed here, the employer already paid the first 3 zuzim.
Okay, then we have to go back. Thus, the Mishnah cannot refer to a situation where one worker promised to pay the others a great wage, but in such a case, the workers could actually claim their wages from the worker. The Gemara responds, Lo tzrich adamar lahu saram al bal habayit. The Mishnah's ruling is necessary only for the case in which the hiring worker told the others they would receive 4 zuzim and said to them, what do they say? And it is incumbent upon the employer to pay your wages. Marcy, I think you're up, number 10.
Okay. The hiring worker revealed that he was acting as the agent of the employer and stated that the employer was the one responsible to pay their wages, according to Ritva.
Okay. So that was 10. In such a case, the workers can claim the wages only from the employer. Since the employer never said he would give the extra zuz, they can't claim it from him. Workers therefore have nothing but a legitimate complaint against the hiring worker for falsely representing the amount they would be paid. Gemara questions this. Let us see how our local workers are generally hired. Number 11.
Since the hiring worker was not authorized by the employer to contract workers for the higher price of 4 zuzim, the agreement he negotiated with the workers is void. Thus, when the workers performed their labor, they were doing so without a legally binding wage agreement, according to Ritva. Now, when laborers perform work in the absence of such an agreement, the law is that the employer must pay them according to the going rate charged by other local workers. This law derives from the Baraisa quoted earlier, which dealt with an employer hiring workers to work in someone else's field. Thus, the Gemara argues that the workers in our case should not have grounds for a legitimate complaint. If the going rate for labor is 4 zuzim a day, the amount the hiring worker promised them, they would be entitled to receive this much from the employer, and they certainly would have nothing to complain about. And even if the going rate is only 3 zuzim a day, in which case they could claim no more than 3 zuzim from the employer, they still would have nothing to complain about, for this is the standard pay for their service, and they could not have expected to find employment anywhere else at a higher rate.
If the going rate, though, is 4 zuzim a day, then the workers can actually claim the amount from the employer. If it's only 3 zuzim, then the workers can't claim the 4 zuz, but they also would have no grounds to complain against the hired worker. Number 12.
See previous note.
That was number 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 12, after the reading says, the Gemara replies, the Mishnah discusses the case. Then the rate of compensation varies. Lo tzricha dika matgar ba'arba deika do mintagar betlata. The Mishnah's ruling is necessary only for a case. Some local workers are hired at a rate of 4 zuzim a day. Others were hired at a rate of 3 zuzim a day. 13.
Since the standard rate varies between 3 and 4 zuzim per day, the deceived workers can claim no more than 3 from the field owner, for they cannot prove that he was willing to pay more than this. According to Ritva, had they wished to receive 4, they would have needed to communicate this directly to the employer himself, and to have reached an agreement with him on those terms, according to Roche.
That was number 13. Okay. Thus, the workers have a valid complaint. The Amrulay, they say to the hiring worker, have you told us that we would pay a rate of 4 a day? We'd have trouble ourselves to find another employer and hire ourselves out at 4 per day. 14.
For example, they claim that they would have located someone who had a pressing need for workers and who therefore would have paid them higher wages, according to Rashi. If, however, all local workers charge only 3 zuzim per day, this is not a valid complaint, for then they do not have a credible claim that they could have found someone to pay them 4 zuzim.
Okay. That was number 14. Number top of the page, sentence A2, having. Second part. Having one explanation of the Mishnah's case, the Gemara offers an alternative possibility.
15. The Gemara now reconsiders a scenario that is rejected earlier. The standard rate charged by other workers is 3 zuzim per day, and this is what the employer was willing to pay. Nevertheless, the hiring worker tells the workers they will receive 4.
Ibaidema always means if you prefer, say this. Here we're dealing with workers who themselves are owners of the fields. Such persons generally don't hire themselves out to work for others unless they're paid premium. Thus they have a valid complaint against the hiring worker. Damrule, they said to him, have you told us that we would be paid a rate of 4 a day? We would have never consented to the job, for we would have found it demeaning to hire ourselves out for the standard wage.
16. For example, even though all other local workers hire themselves out at 3 zuzim a day, these workers still have a valid complaint. Since they are field owners themselves, they have their own work to do and would not have hired themselves out at all unless they received a premium wage for their services. See Mary.
Okay, a third way of construing the Mishnah's case, you buy Ema. If you say la'olam holim askinan, really we're dealing with ordinary workers, those who usually work standard wage, which they're not field owners themselves.
For example, the case where the hiring worker told the others they would receive 4 zuzim, while the employer had only stated he would pay 3, the standard wage for local workers. Additionally, the workers that were hired were ordinary workers who usually do not work for more than 3 zuzim per day. Nevertheless, they have a valid complaint against the hiring worker, as the Gemara now explains.
That was 17. Okay. Nevertheless, they have a valid complaint. The Amri, they may say to the hiring worker this. Keva the Amrat la ba'arba. Since you told us we would be compensated rate of 4 zuzim, Tarchinan v'abdin la avita shapirta. We trouble ourselves and perform for you, the employer, superior work. Had we known that we would receive only 3 zuzim standard wage, we would have performed only work for average quality. The Gemara is challenging. It says, V'lechaze avitati hayahu. Let us examine their work. If it's in fact superior, then they get the 4 zuzim for the employer and they have no complaint. 18.
Although all the local workers charge only 3 zuzim per day, this is the wage such workers are paid for work of ordinary quality. To perform work of superior quality, the local workers would charge 4 zuzim per day. Thus, if the workers indeed performed superior work, they could actually claim 4 zuzim from the owner of the field, since this is the amount he benefited from their labor. See above note 11.
If it's not superior, they will receive only 3 and they would still have no complaint. The Gemara replies, Brifka, dealing with workers who were digging a ditch around the perimeter of the field, the quality of their work cannot be determined. We need a new reader, 76A3. The Gemara interjects, Rivka nami midayada. Digging as well, the quality of work can be indeed known. Gemara says, Damale mayav lo yidia. The ditch became filled with water, and therefore it's unknown how well it was dug. Thus, they're entitled to receive only 3 zuzim from the employer.
Since the workers cannot prove that they performed superior work, they are entitled only to standard wages, see Roche. This follows the general principle known Hamotze Mahaviro Alav Haroya. The burden of proof is on the one who seeks to exact property from his fellow. That was 19, Rabbi.
Do a little more and then I gotta go. So we're continuing after 19. Nevertheless, they have legitimate complaint against the hiring worker. They claim to perform more value work. The Gemara is introducing an explanation. The Mishnah is rejected earlier. Ibayit, if you prefer, say this. Really, the employer told the hiring worker he's willing to pay the rate of 4 zuzim a day. Hiring worker went and told others, and the employer was offering to pay at a rate of only 3 a day. Number 20, Sharon.
In this case, the workers cannot claim the extra zuz even if they perform superior work and even if the hiring worker promised to pay their salary himself. The reason is that here there was a legally binding wage agreement set up between the employer and the workers before the workers began their labor, and this agreement provided for a wage of only 3 zuzim. The hiring workers certainly had the employer's authorization to find workers at less than 4 zuzim. Thus, he faithfully represented the employer, and the workers freely chose to accept the wage represented to them by the hiring worker. The agreement they negotiated is therefore binding.
That was 20. As far as that which you said, each worker certainly considered the fact that he would receive 3 zuzim, and yet he accepted the assignment anyway, 21.
The Gemara above presented this as an argument that the workers have no right to complain about the lesser wage.
So we can reply, Damarle, they nevertheless have a valid complaint against the hiring worker. Why? They may have said to him, Late lach al timna tov b'ma'alav. Do you not subscribe to the teaching of the verse, don't withhold good from its owners, 22.
Proverbs chapter 3, verse 27.
If the employer was willing to pay us higher wages, why did you withhold the information from us? The Gemara has a topic of discussion. Pita iyamala bal habayit v'tlata. It's obvious that if the employer told the hiring worker to hire others at a rate of 3 zuzim a day, v'azalihu amar lahu ba'arba. And the hiring worker went and told the workers the employer was offering to pay at a rate of 4. Amarle kamosha amar bal habayit. The workers replied to him, we accept the terms as stated by the employer, daitu ilahu, that their intention is to receive higher than average wages of 4 zuzim.
There are 2 conceivable ways to interpret the response. We accept the terms as stated by the employer. A, we trust that you have accurately reported to us the salary offered by the employer, and we accept the wage you have quoted. B, we wish to be bound by the salary actually offered by the employer, not by the offer you have reported to us in his name. In the first case of the Gemara, the hiring worker offers a wage of 4 zuzim, which is higher than the average wage of 3 that is generally paid local workers according to Maharsha. Thus, when the workers reply, we accept the terms as stated by the employer, we interpret this as an acceptance of the higher than average wage quoted by the hiring worker. In other words, they clearly do not mean we disregard that which you have said and wish to be bound by whatever the employer offered. Rather, they mean, we are relying upon you that the employer actually said he was prepared to pay 4 zuzim, and we accept that wage, according to what Rashi as explained by Maharsha. In this scenario, whether the workers will actually receive 4 zuzim will depend on whether the hiring worker stated that he was responsible for the salary. If he stated that he's personally responsible to pay them, he must give them extra zuz from his own pocket. If he stated that the employer is responsible to pay them, they can claim only the standard wage of 3 zuzim, since the employer never promised more, and they have a legitimate complaint against the hiring worker for misleading them, according to Rashi. See Gemara above.
Okay, that was 23. Ella, Iamar le balabai arba. In the reverse case, the law is not clear. Employer told the hiring worker to hire at a rate of 4 a day. Bazal ihu amar lahu bitlata. Hiring worker were told the workers employer was offering to pay at the rate of 3 a day.
Once again, we're dealing with a situation where the standard wage paid to the local workers is 3 zuzim. See Maharsha.
Amar kamar shamar balabayit. Whereupon the workers said to him, we accept the terms as stated by the employer. Such a case, how do we interpret this worker response? Adibra dideka samche. They're relying on the hiring worker's word. In effect, what are you telling them? We trust you that the employee said this. If so, they would receive only 3 zuzim, since the hired worker did not stipulate more than this. 25.
Nevertheless, they have a legitimate complaint against him, for he unfairly withheld from them the fact that the employer was willing to pay higher wages, according to Rashi. See Gemara above.
Okay, that was 25. Oh, Dilma, Idabro, Valabayit Kasamche. Or perhaps relying on the word of the employer, that is, they're telling the hiring worker they don't trust him implicitly, and that they wish to be bound by whatever wage the employer really stipulated. If this is what they mean, they would indeed receive 4 zuzim, since this is the amount mentioned by the employer. 26.
The point of the Gemara is that where the hiring worker offered them nothing more than standard wage, they might have meant to disregard this offer and accept whatever the employer really stated. If so, they would not be accepting the hiring worker's offer of 3 zuzim, and therefore they would not forfeit the 4th zuz. See Rashi.
Okay, we're going to stop here at 26 to resume next Tuesday, which is going to be the day before the Seder, right? So we'll put some thoughts about Passover in next week's class.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
The plan? Okay, good.
Chag Sameach Pesach, everybody.
Yeah.
And to you.
Yes.
I can't believe it's coming so soon, guys.
I know, years flying by again.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good, safe week, everyone.
So are we?
Not having Kabbalah tonight?
Yeah, no, we are. I have to do something. Yeah, we're resuming at 8.
That's
tonight.
right. I forgot about it.
Yeah, we're talking about angels today. Yeah.
Okay.
In memory of Bernie. Yes.
Okay.
Arlene, can you send me the?
I just did. I said.
Okay,
"Oh,
thank
I
you.
know."
No,
Arlene,
it was awful because it was like the whole bottom. I don't know what they did at the post office.
Arlene,
but-
can you send me the newsletter that you finished up with Bernie's thing and Karen?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
I'll be back.
Two for one.
Arlene,
Thank
did
you.
you send it to me?
There you
The
go.
newsletter? Am I on your list? You're muted.
Yes, I'll send it to you, and I think you're on my list. Hold on.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See, it's a good thing the post office chewed mine up.
Yep.
Wow.
The rabbi has the list. So if you haven't been added, you should get on. He controls the list,
Okay,
Well,
as far as I know.
it's a big responsibility.
right.
I know.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Get off for a few minutes.
Hmm. Go take a potty break. I'm reading the newsletter.
I just read it.
What do you think of the newsletter, guys? I
I'm
have
reading
to.
it now.
Oh, I have to finish up what Arlene wrote about Bernie. Is it funny?
I'm reading your jokes.
Oh,
Very cute.
I think we need some humor in life.
Oh, those are good.
I think we need some humor in life, seriously.
Hi, Ubi.
Okay. Okay, so welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Trudy, welcome.
And newbie, welcome.
Welcome.
Hi.
Trudy. Yeah,
Yes.
reincarnated cats are welcome. Anyway, tonight, I told you we're going to talk about the angelic sphere, memory of Bernie, but first I wanted to tell you what I was studying last night. I always believe that your thoughts create reality. Bernie and I talked about this a lot. That's what I'm mentioning it first. And also, what you speak creates angels. But if you don't speak so well, it's going to create negative forces. So let me go around the room. Sharon, you believe that you can really spend the whole day just thinking about positive things, and whatever you're going to create, you can bring into your life. And do you believe in when you speak that you can create wonderful beings of light by saying nice things? And if you say some not nice things, then you're going to create some negative entities. Do you believe in that whole concept, the Kabbalistic speaking and thinking?
Yep. I had a bat mitzvah at 60 years old.
I
That is
remember.
my proof that yes, I can. I think something positive and I just make it happen.
Okay, you did.
Yeah.
Mac.
Well, I do, but it's not to say that I think positive thoughts all day long. I mean, sometimes, things will happen that maybe I get angry about something or something, and then I have
Well, that's the
negative
thing.
thoughts, but that's just a part of being human. But for the most part, I really do try to stay positive, and I try to surround myself with people who also stay positive, which helps me keep positive.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't like to
yeah.
be around people who are constantly putting people down or putting things, and are constantly have such a negative outlook.
because you're a composite of that. I believe you're a
I'm very uncomfortable around that.
Yeah, Trudy.
Yes. I'm sorry, I have barking dogs in the background. I'm sorry.
So I don't hear. Trudy, do you believe that you all day long you can control your thoughts and think positive things all day long?
Not all day long. I falter at moments, but I believe it's very important. But I'm human, and I don't think 100% of the time I can.
I agree with you. I have a hard time myself with it, but I think together maybe we could come up with a way, because I think most of the time in life we look at the world around us, as she said earlier in the other class, and we can think about what kind of world is it. I mean, I'm going to Israel. Look what's going on yesterday in the streets of Viv.
Terrible.
Oh, want to focus my energy there or not? I mean, do I want to go in the middle of a 200,000 people protesting the government, or do I want to go somewhere else, thinking about how I can make a difference in people's lives? And Trudy, you're a social worker you're a counselor. You're trying to help people, so you have to be in a state like that.
Well,
okay,
sometimes it's a
Yeah.
forced state. Sometimes you fake it. I mean, when I hear terrible things, I have to respond in a positive way, because you're taught that. That's how you have to approach things. But my body may be feeling different than my thoughts.
Okay, it's fair. Marcia, are you able to think positive thoughts all day long when something at work gets to you, and then you say, "Oh my God, what am I doing here? Why am I here?"
I
Why?
think you go in there with a positive attitude, and hopefully the day continues, and hopefully if you're positive, everyone around you is.
Yeah, well, it's contagious, I believe. So if you're smiling, if people come around me smiling, then I'm going to smile. I grew up with a lot of negative people, so I guess I was a composite of a lot of negativity, a lot of hatred towards other people. My inner circle of friends, they always like to gossip, but you become part and parcel of that. So I try to surround myself now, mostly, can't do it all the time. You got certain people you have to be in your life, and some of them happen to be negative, but I try to associate myself with people that are positive and have a good outlook on life. And I think it rubs off on me. I mean, I'm lucky. I saw Kathy Grinfeld today in the pool, so get to see her a few times a week, and we talk about things, and we reminisce about things in the Hebrew school, the way she contributed with her kids space, having all those kids come up through the ranks of the Hebrew school. And everyone, a lot of people I see during the day have physical limitations. A lot of people I have Parkinson's. I see people most of the days with. I see people with MS, bad cases of multiple sclerosis. I have people have a hard time walking. I have people I see with braces, because that's where I hang out, in the pool area at Health Tracks. So I see that a lot. And you know what? When I see that, I try to say, wow, how lucky I am that I'm not in that situation. When I see how people really suffer, just to keep their thoughts together or be able to walk normally. And, when I'm able to walk normally out of there, I just feel grateful to God that I'm not in that predicament. Try to help these people as much as I can. But it's a tough life for some of these people. A lot of them, their husbands walked out on them in their lives. So a lot of them are not in touch with the parent, the father of their children. So, I mean, that's just unfortunate what happens there in the world. But as you know, we're dealing with it right here too. So I don't know myself why it seems like after 20 years of marriage, Sharon, you're married 20 years, Trudy, you're married. Trudy, how long are you married? I don't know why.
I'm 35 years.
35.
Oh,
I don't know.
I beat everybody. I was a baby. We've made it to 50.
Good for
That's-
you.
Wow.
Muzzle
Yes.
top.
But
Thank you.
Since you married the longest here, I only made it 14. Since you made it the longest, why do you think it is these days that in this part of the state I have 8 couples I know going through divorce or have been divorced in the last 3 months? What happens, Trudy, after 20 years? Should there be like a ceremony or just back out of it if you're not have the commitment?
I mean, I can't tell you that every day of 50 years of marriage was bliss. There's always going to be problems and struggles. It's whether you're willing, I think, to work through it. It depends on whether you feel it's worth, that's why I work with children and not adults. So I would never make a good marriage counselor because I took my vows very seriously, even though I was very young. And, when there were difficult times, I recognize them as difficult times, and you just kind of plow through it.
But I think that what I see, Elaine, maybe you could speak to it for yourself. I just see the little couples. It's like after a while period of time, they stop doing things together. They go like they're separate. One guy plays cards with his friends. Girls go for a night out somewhere. When I see these couples that are getting divorced, I see for some reason like there's temptations in the workforce, and I just see that they seem like people outgrow each other. Trudy, does that people?
I don't think that that's what it is.
What is it?
I think that what it is, because like my husband and I and other couples that I've known, we can have very different interests. Matter of fact, in a lot of ways, we're very opposite. He likes spicy. I don't like spicy. He likes loud. I need quiet. We're very different, but the core values, the core are the same. I don't know.
But yeah, I think a lot of times people that have succeeded in the last few years are people that are different. The people that for some reason are not doing so well. So I think maybe when I got married, it was sort of an opposite for me. But I don't know. I think maybe people don't want to have people that are exactly like them. They get bored with it. Arlene, do you think that's the case? Your situation? People that are too close together, is that hard, or is it better to have opposites in a relationship?
Well, we're certainly very opposite. There's no doubt about that. But we've always had a close relationship. We always, in our earlier years, we had a lot of common things, and we had a lot of things we did separately.
Right.
After my accident, that changed. But we found other things to do that we could do together. So
Okay.
I only bike a little bit now, and Carol does 20, 30, 35-mile bikes. So in the summer, we sort of during the day, we go our separate ways. I'm golfing or biking. She's doing long bikes or kayaking. And so I think you can make it work by finding things to do together if you want to. But I also think it has a lot to do with your heart and soul,
Exactly. It's the commonality that you share.
Right. And every relationship, as everybody knows, has its trials and tribulations.
Right. Yeah.
You got to learn what's important and what's not important, because too many things fought over or discussed are just not important, and I think that's that's the key to our relationship, is that we don't where we do have differences, we can resolve them. Or we know how to, we know how to act now, you know, we've been together 40 years.
Oh, 40, well, it's
We know how to- yeah, so Carol's going on a trip tomorrow and she's all nervous and does she have this and does she have that? And she couldn't get into her airline today to see her tickets and everything, so she gets a little frustrated, right? I say, can I help you? And when I get the wrong answer, I just let her be. And eventually,
I
she comes back and says, okay, I'm done now and I'm sorry, or yeah, I really could use your help, you know? So you can't get mad. I mean, I don't know, but I think we've done a good job over the years. And if anything, we're more together as a couple now than we ever were.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And I'll say that actually the accident did that a little bit.
Oh, sometimes it
Because
takes,
when you think you're gonna lose someone,
Mhm.
you know, you get out of that, I don't want to say bored, but you know, you're used to doing things a certain way. And life is good and everything's going along well. And then something happens. And on both sides, it made us really even a more special couple.
okay, good. I'm just
Perhaps.
curious how people feel about the situation. Because to me, it's like very unnerving to see so many of my divorce court now. It's just, I'm afraid to ask how everyone's doing. I said, not good, Rabbi, not good.
Well, you know, also in my older age and longer marriage, I've learned that sometimes speaking, you don't say anything. But
Yeah,
no, I'm serious. The talk is well overrated.
Yep.
You don't have to, there's things you just kind of innately know about each other, and you don't have to make everything a
yeah,
discussion.
yeah. I think people talk too much I'm guilty. I'm from New York, Trudy. I think people do way too much talking, and talking over each other is, especially in some of my relatives from New York, it's, the listening skill is something that's hard to come by in my family, I know.
Yeah, I've really learned not to say anything when I'm not sure and I don't know exactly what's, for instance, sometimes not saying is worth so much more.
Yeah,
But we're in a culture that kind of says, you know, talk everything out. I don't know. Sometimes people say things that they regret. That's all.
okay.
So
Well,
I think you have to have your sense about you. It's easy to get irritated and mad, but you really have to know what you can say and what you can't say. And I think as you live with someone longer and longer, you figure that out. You know, now's not the time to say this, you know, or that, you know.
you know, I was speaking to someone today that is speaking at a near-death experience seminar, and he told me, he said, when you realize that everything is being recorded by heaven, everything's being recorded, you're going to be careful what you say. If you think that it's a big deal, it's different. But if you think everything's being recorded in heaven by what you say and what you do, and everything will be remembered, you might think twice about what you say about, you know, being cursing someone that came in your lane, and then having conniptions on the road and stuff, and driving like a madman when you're angry about it. So anyway, I wanted to talk tonight for Bernie's memory. He always liked the Sefirot, the emanations of God, and with an angel associated with each one. We start at the top of our head with the crown, the Keter. And what's the angel? The most powerful angel we have is Metatron, Metat, short. And the angel of life, the Metatron is on the top of the tree of life. It's directing God's living energy throughout the universe. It connects us, living beings, with the divine energy of God and helps people incorporate that energy into their lives. It also brings spiritual balance to all of the different parts of God's creation and helps people achieve spiritual enlightenment. So a lot of the enlightenment I got from Bernie is from reading books that we studied together. Wayne Dyer, spiritual masters that he liked. And he always liked when I talked about Metatron, because that's sort of the connecting angel that we need to go to reach the heavenly divine energy. It's like a connecting rod that we help for that. Now there's a second type of energy of Sirot is called Bina, understanding. Means, what's the angel? Safkiel. So this is the angel we go upon, and we want to have compassionate understanding. And it leads the angels of how to understand people. It helps people learn. So if we want to learn about God, like we're doing now, I call upon, I don't like to call upon angels to help me, call upon God, right? Savkiel, to help me understand about God. I want insights, truly, like in your job, about myself and how to help other people. And I need Savkiel to help guide me to make decisions in my life that reflects my true identity. Okay, so again, Metatron is the angel that connects us to the divine forces. If you meditate on Savkiel, that's going to help you learn about God. And I think everyone here in this class wants to learn about God. Now, what about mercy? Chesed. That's the angel Tzadkiel. And the angels that Tzadkiel supervises of when we need mercy, like some of you that need to tell people about God's mercy, involves inspiring people to be kind to others. So say today, I want to teach you about being kind to others. So I'm going to say, Angel Tzadkiel, help me teach our class here about being kind to other people. So it also helps when we need to pray for things in the world, call upon Tzadkiel to help for mercy. Now, what about if we want strength? Then we go to Chamuel for Gevura, strength. So Chamuel exercises tough love. Okay, so we talked before about relationships. Sometimes, I don't like this, but we need tough love to strengthen relationships to our people, to ourselves, and to each other, and with God. So, so if we need, say our relationship is a little weak with God. Say I need strength. I think we all need it, right, guys? If we need strength to our relationship with God, we'll call upon Chamuel. Now, Tiferet means beauty. And there's an angel name that you're all familiar with because some of you have friends by the name of Michael and Raphael. And Michael is a wonderful angel with the name Micha Mocha Be'em Adonai, right? Who is like God. And Raphael, those are powerful angels that help connect us to the world that we live in and keep us grounded. Now we have another angel, which you might not have heard of for Netzach, eternity, is Haniel. That's the angel of joy. We're helping people change our emotions. So let me ask you, I was listening to one of my rabbi's lectures, and guess where we are in the world as far as the happiest people in the world. Where do you think we rank in the world about being happy? I'll give you a choice. Either first, 10th, 18th, or 28th. Where do you think we learn about ourselves? Be happy. 1, 8, 18.
When you say we, what do you mean,
You
Rabbi?
mean the United States?
In general, the U.S. population was surveyed about being happy. The survey.
28.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the lowest number. Yeah.
Nope, not 28. No, it's not. We're not the lowest.
And the next lowest.
18th. We're 18th. So no matter people think we're the greatest nation in the world, we're still 18. You know why I think, guys? It's because of the population that, when we talked about it, that are very depressed in the world. We have a lot of people, especially these days. I just finished the book Caste. I just finished it, Arlene. And we talk about the people that are discriminated big time in this world. And a lot of the book has to do with Jewish too, and Jewish discrimination, especially during the Holocaust. So we're 18th because though we may be happy, there are a lot of people that are also bringing us down because they're so depressed. We have a lot of depression in this world. We're right behind the country of Czechoslovakia.
But we also have, United States is always involving itself in other parts of the world in
True.
wars. So yeah, and is it any surprise that you've got families being left behind, you've got mothers and fathers, daughters and sons, brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, they're all being left behind while people go to war.
True.
Countries that we're really, like, we really shouldn't have been in Vietnam. I mean, to be.
Well,
you know,
I that too, but yeah.
But we involve ourselves in other countries' problems.
I
And
think
that's
that,
going to have an effect on
Yeah, go
our
ahead.
population.
I think it's more so that we have never seen what other people have seen. We have never been in a Holocaust. You know, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in this country, and I
Right.
understand
Right.
that. But we as most Americans have not lived like people in other countries that don't have freedoms and don't have rights and have been.
Oh,
So
not in our
when
lifetime.
you've been, I think, touched by that, you can see how good it is here. It's not perfect, but it's way freer than most countries.
But
Or-
Arlene, you're talking about today's world. What about 200 years ago? We had slavery. We
Right.
had Indians that were lands and they were shot and lynched for no reason at all.
But look how far we've come. I don't deny that we've done bad things, but I'm saying that today's generations, probably since my generation, 40s, you know, what have I seen? I have seen the terrible tragedy of the Twin Towers. It's probably
Right.
the closest I have come.
We were 9/11. Yeah, we had
Mhm.
9/11. It's probably the
Right.
closest I've come. It's nothing compared to what just Jews, for example, from early on, since
Mhm.
at least the 1800s, maybe even longer, maybe through all history, Jews have always been discriminated against in Europe.
right. That's for sure.
So I just think we haven't had that personal history of,
I agree.
But I
I don't
think
know how
if
to
you,
explain it better.
I kind of respectfully disagree, because I think if you were a person of color,
Yeah.
Yeah,
then
that's
you would still. I see the discrimination. They tell me about it. I see it. It's alive and well.
Right.
Just look at the newspaper. So even though you're a Jew, you're still a person that is Caucasian. And I
Exactly.
think in
And you
this
can actually,
country,
we can
That is-
hide behind our skin. I can
Right.
still remember when I lived in Florida a few years ago, my next door neighbor and her husband were Black. And she was talking about how few Black families they were in this Del Webb community. And she was talking about being in a minority. And I looked at her and I said, you know, Lauren, you don't realize that you and I are both in the minority because my skin is white. But you wouldn't know that I'm also Jewish. So I just find, Arlene, that in today's world, you're exactly right. In our lifetime, you are absolutely correct. The worst that we have seen is the Twin Towers coming down, but that's only 70 or 80 years. We did not live in the times that Black people were slaves, that Indians lost their reservations,
That's true.
that people were lynched, and sometimes for no reason. If we had been alive 200 years ago, I think we'd be having a very, very different conversation. But you're exactly right when you say in our lifetime.
I agree with you, Sharon, and I agree with you, Trudy. I feel that, and I have a very good Black friend and some good Hispanic friends. I just think we have a lot of racism and a lot of discrimination. And I don't know how to make that better, except in my own way, to not let it happen where I am and in my shift. And I try to do that.
That's what you can do. You can take charge of your own life.
But even us as Jews, and even as people of color, we still, although some people make it difficult, we still have a right to vote. We still
Right.
have rights, and what, you know, blacks are not riding in the back of the bus anymore. I'm not saying it's perfect. You go to Europe, I think you'll find it's a different story even today. You don't want to live in France today, the turmoil there.
No.
You don't want to live in a lot of countries because there's a lot of biases.
True. Yeah.
It's just my opinion, but I absolutely respect and believe what you're saying is true. I just take a little different look at it.
What do you think people of other countries, like Russians, like Ukrainians, like Polish, like French people, how do you think that they feel when they come to America? Do you think they feel welcomed? Because I've been to Europe. I haven't been to France, but I've been to Italy, I've been to Greece, I've been to England, and even Canada. And when I go into those countries, especially in Greece, where women are still today treated as second-class citizens, and they don't have the rights, you're exactly right.
Right.
They
Greece,
don't have the right to vote,
It's my
at
point.
least not in the 80s. But I often wonder, I often used to wonder how Europeans viewed us until I went to Europe. And I was like on the outside looking in. I didn't feel like I was in Italy. I felt it was probably the only place that I actually felt welcomed, but they still tried to take advantage of me. But I knew a few Italian words, and
Well,
they tried to like sell me a can of Sprite for $4.
well,
But I knew how much they were charging.
in Italy, when I was in Europe, and people in Switzerland told Debbie and I, they said, don't go to Italy, they'll take your money, there are a bunch of crooks there. And meanwhile, the Swiss, who were so unfriendly to us, are telling me about going to Italy, where people were so friendly to us. And in Italy and France too, if you don't speak French, they say, you don't speak French, too bad for you, we're not going to deal with you. Anyway, so France was not a welcoming place for me as well, guys. So
It's hard. It seems like the United States seems to be a country that's an entity of its own. And then you have the rest of the world. You know, sometimes that's what I feel like. If I'm going to another country,
yeah,
it's like, oh, you're an American. I mean, we went to Liverpool and stayed at a B&B, and the woman was Jewish who owned the B&B. And I thought, oh, great. Now here I'm in England, and I have something in common with this woman. I couldn't have been treated worse.
oh God, that's terrible.
I could not have been treated worse. That woman, she had me crying, bawling my eyes out when I left there.
Because she's Jewish
Get out
doesn't mean
of there.
welcome. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. You know, like you, Arlene, I really just try to do my part. And I know there's a lot of people like me out there that are just trying to do their part. And if we all come together and we all try to do our little part that we seem to think is so insignificant, then maybe we can make a difference.
But
Well,
I think you said it better than I. There's a lot of countries where women don't have rights.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets treated equally in this country, but we do have, you know, but speaking just like about women, and you can speak about this in terms of race and everything else. We're allowed to have an education. You know, would you want to live in China or in Japan, where they tell you how many kids you can have? And you know, when I look at those things, this is not a perfect country.
no, far from it.
But I believe, even, you know, we'll see what happens in the next couple of years with what's going on in this country now. We right now, I think, we're the freest. We have the most opportunity. And as the years have gone by, you know, I think the prejudice is hidden in this country. But I think as the years go by, and as there's more assimilation, I think some of that will change. Some of it
Yeah.
will never change because there's always going to be people who hate. And
Well,
there's always going to be people who hate someone for the color of their skin, someone for their religion, someone for the way they part their hair. There's always going to be that kind of hate. Hopefully there's less of it.
you know what? It's very sobering for me. I just finished Caste. I started The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. But I know we got to go soon. But I just want to tell you, when she's describing what it's like to be the first lady and the insecurities about having a husband, the first Black president, and what it's like to be an example and everything has to be perfect. It's never easy for anyone. And when you're a trailblazer like she was, added pressure. So it's everyone feels it, as you said before, when that you're gonna, that you do the wrong thing and people are gonna say, well, that's because Barack Obama is a Black president and look what he did. So there's a lot of pressure when you're a first in anything, especially when you're the head of a country and you make one mistake and then people get all over you. So it's I think you should really finish the book, Caste, Arlene. You'll get a good feel of what it's been.
I haven't started it yet, but I'm hoping to start it soon. I've got 2 books ahead of it that I'm reading.
Well-
I'm gonna get it once I finish with my class stuff. Yay!
I think it's important to read, seriously. I think it's
CASTE.
CASTE. It's in my weekly news. It'll be in again this week. We're gonna have a discussion in the summer outdoors, maybe at your house, Sharon. Maybe we'll have an sort of a off synagogue premises discussion on the caste system that's been going on around this country and around the world. So
I'm gonna bring it up on my Kindle.
yeah,
I'm going to leave, but Trudy,
it's been a
Bernie?
pleasure with you guys tonight. I
Sure.
hope you got to remember your Bernie angel names, Raphael, Sandalphon, and other names, Michael and other angels. We hope they're all helping Bernie on his journey through the astral plane.
Trudy, I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting you yet. I'm
Mm.
looking forward to it.
Oh,
Oh,
well, thank you.
I don't think I've met you either, Trudy.
I haven't either.
Well, I usually show up Friday nights. That's my night.
you saw her Friday. She was here. Trudy was here last Friday.
Oh, okay. I
You
just
saw-
didn't meet you. There were so many people there.
Yeah, I was there. I was in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Mm.
Oh, so maybe, I think you were behind me.
Yeah, I think
Probably.
she was. I think she was.
Okay.
Okay, everyone.
All right. Good night,
Lila-
everyone.
Good
Have
night.
a
Good
great
night.
night.
All right, guys, what do y'all want? Should we get in bed together? Why do you leave one cookie? I don't like the finish there. Oh, Puka, what? You're hungry? Somebody ate your food? What? All right, give me a minute. Give me a minute.
That was a sweet snack the other night. We played plantains and everything, and that was sweet. And what else was there? There was some juice and coconut oil and chocolate. And very sweet.
What are you looking for?
Right now I'm looking for coconut oil.
What do you think?
Coconut oil.
Well, I bought you the wrong kind. I bought you the Goya. What makes you think there's more coconut water? Oh, I see Gatorade and I see tonic water. I haven't bought any.
Well, you can look, I don't see anything. Do you need the rest of this newspaper? It's old. Do you want? Do you like those cookies? I don't either. You know what they taste like? Mushy.
Probably Japanese people. Yeah, I had one more.
Oh, I didn't know there was anything. When you said on top, I thought you meant. So just so you know, I opened the Hershey's with almonds.
Good to me.
Somebody ate her food, so I have to mix up more. Oh, shut up.
She's at the nosh part, but she's not at the food part. I think you want the nosh and not food. You want another one. I think I heard something. I think I heard something. Going on.
You see, how do I do this? You see how what I do? It's crazy. Right, tell me what I'm doing.
I use the car. You need to put that father in your mouth.
I don't even know how to lock my car. This is what I'm looking for. Do we use up the ricotta cheese? Did we? Oh my God, there's grapes in here that have to be eaten. And there's swordfish and couscous. It's what they all want. Almond joy, Hershey's with almond. What? That's why I thought you liked it. Tell me about Puka. Did she get any pills today?
No pills. We got two.
So what are we gonna put in it?
The pills?
Yeah.
Eat your chicken.
No, she won't. I doubt it. Here, we'll try, but last night I finally got her to take it because I had ground. Oh, that's what I have. I bought ground turkey. Never mind. I remember.
I think the antibiotics are helping her ears more than her ass.
What?
I think the ground sugar, I think the pills are, the antibiotics are helping her ears more than her.
I do too. Where's the ground turkey? Am I losing my mind?
Trying to give some of the pills.
Right, but I thought the ground turkey was right here.
This is all right.
Maybe I took it out when I moved this.
You did it once. Maybe got used up. Didn't you tell me to make it for the dog?
There's Purdue. Did you make it for? No, you had chicken. I bought it yesterday. All right, this is crazy. I can't stand this. Spend hours like we can't find anything. We might as well be legally blind. I must have taken it out. I said we might as well be because we can never find anything. Like, how do you lose a package of turkey? Unless Leva can open the refrigerator, which it was right here, I swear. I bought, they 25% off.
Here it is. I got in the key drawer. So I have no clue, like, I how to lock this car.
Give me your phone, I gotta get your app on.
I gave him my
Give
phone,
me a fucking password. Think about it.
2277.
Apple ID password.
Here. Just eat the fucking thing, bitch. Oh, come on, stop with the smooching. Eat it. I'm not gonna give you another one if you don't eat it. Did you eat it?
I think she got by accident.
Right, I need to get off my feet for half an hour and then off minute. Too bad that's so late in the day, you're massage. Did she eat it?
Yep.
I mean, is it, or is there a pill left?
Yeah.
Here's your food.
You gotta help me. I can't get you can't start the car without.
I don't know what it is.